If you believe poetry can speak in whispers and still shake the ground beneath you, or if you've ever carried a memory so carefully it began to feel like a prayer, or if you've ever found beauty in uncertainty, in a voice that questions even itself, or if you want to explore poems that wrestle with heritage, belonging, and the meaning of home, if so, then today's book just might be for you. Today, I'll be reviewing An Authentic Life by Jennifer Chang. Welcome to Spencer Reads Everything. I'm your host, Spencer Duncan, and on this channel, I review every book I read, fiction, nonfiction, poetry, and I let you know who I think each book is for. And I'll admit, I wasn't familiar with Jennifer Chang's work before this year, but when An Authentic Life was named a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize category in poetry, I looked forward to reading it. The poetry options always surprise me. This week on the channel is Pulitzer Prize a week, where I'm covering some of the winners and finalists from this year's awards. The Pulitzer Prizes often highlight books that deserve a wider audience, and poetry finalists in particular can introduce readers to voices they might not encounter otherwise. If you'd like to see my other reviews or some Pulitzer Prize recognized books, from history to biography to poetry just like this, then be sure to check out my Pulitzer Prize playlist. Now let's take a look at the author of this book. Jennifer Chang is an American poet and scholar whose work often blends personal history, cultural heritage, and the layered textures of memory. She was born and raised in New Jersey to Taiwanese immigrant parents, and her poetry reflects both the intimacy of lived experience and broader questions of identity and belonging. She is the author of two previous collections, The History of Anonymity from 2008, which was an inaugural selection for the Virginia Quarterly Review Poetry Series and a finalist for the Shenandoah Glasgow Prize for Emerging Writers. And the other work, Some Say the Lark, came out in 2017, which was longlisted for the 2018 PEN Open Book Award and won the 2018 William Carlos Williams Award. Her poems have appeared in American Poetry Review, Best American Poetry in 2012, The Nation, The New Yorker, and Poetry. A dedicated advocate for Asian American literature, she has served since 2003 as co-chair of the advisory board of Kundiman, a nonprofit that supports Asian American writers. She holds a BA from the University of Chicago and earned both an MFA and a PhD from the University of Virginia. Chang currently teaches at the Missioner Center for Writers in Austin, Texas. Now let's take a look at the collection of poems themselves. However, reviewing a poetry collection is always a little tricky. The point of poetry is to be read, especially slowly in most cases, and definitely carefully, and in your own voice and in your own mind. And I'm not going to read entire poems here. Instead, I'll try to give you a sense of the kind of poetry that Jennifer Chang writes in An Authentic Life. The themes vary widely, and as with most poetry, or at least a lot of poetry, the stated subject is not always the true subject. The meaning you leave with may not be the one that you expected to find in the first place. The book opens with The Poem of Force, which is a piece that sets the emotional and philosophical tone for the collection. Borrowing its title from Simone Weil's famous essay, it begins in a municipal swimming pool where the speaker is teaching her son to swim. At first, it's playful, and again, I catch his attack, he laughs. But the stillness of a man crouched in the corner becomes an unshakable presence, his gray face expressionless, and the silver rim of his glasses, another prick of light, shift the scene toward a bit of unease. And then you enter the idea of war. It enters into the mind, and here it's not as a distant event, but as a ubiquity that alters perception. And in the poem she says, "Who's to say stillness isn't a sound, to float and drift, to love the waters with cold brutality?" And I'd say it's a poem that's about witnessing implication and that thin line between ordinary life and extreme violence. Other poems carry this interplay between intimacy and historical consciousness. In the poem What is Music, she explores sound as a vessel for memory, where melody and noise become indistinguishable from longing. And probably one of the more famous poems from this collection, Hydrangeas, she turns a single bloom into an emblem of beauty's impertinence and the way seasons mirror emotional states. In The Death of Socrates, she reframes the philosopher's final moments less as a static image of virtue and more as a confrontation with the cost of thought itself. In Dialogues Against God and Dialogues Against Philosophy, the author interrogates belief systems with both reverence and skepticism, pushing back against inherited narratives while acknowledging their hold. Hence the title of them. Those are well-known concepts and ongoing discussions in the larger sphere. Questions about how people approach God and philosophy, and of course drawing its title from some of the most famous philosophers. And then you have the title poem itself, An Authentic Life, which meditates on what it means to live truthfully when authenticity itself is shaped by expectations and myths and social roles. So near the close of the collection comes an essay on war, which is one of the book's most layered and quite impactful pieces. The poem begins with the domestic of sweeping the floor, thinking of a mother that is ailing, and then turns towards the challenge of writing about something that the speaker has not directly experienced. She even says in the poem, most of us have not been to war, yet certain photographs make us remember what never happened to us. The dust in the corners become a metaphor for war's residue. And again, she says, stubborn, unrelenting, much like grief. And then personal memories collide with inherited histories as the speaker recalls her mother's fear, her survival of wars. Again, from the poem, I studied and wars I never heard of. War here is not abstract. It's inside the home, in the silence between phone calls. It's in the act of sweeping, in the mother of all wars, which is inside ourselves. Across the book, Chang creates a world where the personal is never free from the historical, and the historical is felt in the smallest domestic gestures. Like I said, a hydrangea, a philosophical dialogue, a swimming lesson, or a broom in hand. Each becomes a way to measure the distance between what we've lived and what we've inherited. As always, I enjoy the Pulitzer Prize poetry selections because of, and not despite, the fact that I don't keep up with contemporary poetry. Every year, they give me a reason to step into a part of the literary world that I don't often visit. So reading them feels like opening a door into a room full of voices speaking in ways that I'm not entirely fluent in. And sometimes I catch every word, sometimes only the music of what I can hear. And that unfamiliarity is part of the appeal to me, at least occasionally. It also means that I do approach these books with both curiosity and humility. I know I'm not always in a position to judge the technical or artistic quality of the poems the way that a more dedicated poetry reader might feel. Instead, I read for just a sense of connection, for those moments where a phrase makes me stop and maybe look up and, just give me an image that lodges itself in my mind for at least a few days. And I would say that in this collection, An Authentic Life, those moments did happen, and they happened more than once. So that being said, my reaction to the individual poems themselves, they varied, which I think is exactly what you'd expect from a collection like this. Some pieces felt like they were speaking directly to me with some clarity and force, while others felt definitely a little more elusive. Although I'd say their beautiful was language, they may have been harder for me to grasp exactly what was trying to be said. Yet even in those moments, there was something worth sitting with, whether it was the rhythm of a line or the way that the author folds history into the most domestic of scenes. And I would say above all, what impressed me was her range. Across the book, she moves through an emotional spectrum that feels both deeply personal and universally human, from anger to apathy, from gratitude to greed, from tenderness to a kind of cool distance. The shift between a poolside moment with her child and a meditation on war, or between a single flower and a philosophical argument, is not jarring in her hands. It actually feels like the natural range of a mind moving throughout the world. Even if I know I don't yet have the poetic vocabulary to fully appreciate what the author is doing, I still came away feeling that the collection was worth my time. It's the kind of book that reminds me that poetry doesn't have to yield all its meaning on the first read, and that sometimes the work of sitting with it and puzzling over it and letting it echo in the background is part of the reward. That being said, who is this for? Well, An Authentic Life is for readers who relish poetry that asks you to linger, to reread, and let meaning reveal itself slowly. It's for people who appreciate work that moves fluidly between the concrete and the abstract, like a swimming pool, a hydrangea in bloom, or the sweep of a broom. And then It's for those that feel the need, that opens those moments into meditations on history, philosophy, faith, and the shape of a life honestly lived. If you enjoy poetry that engages both the personal and the political without being overly polemical, then I would say that the voice here will resonate with you. It's also for readers who find pleasure in tonal and thematic variety. The collection ranges from intimate domestic scenes to allusions to Socrates, and from the immediacy of a parent's interaction with a child to reflections on war and inherited trauma. If you're the kind of reader who enjoys exploring multiple emotional registers of anger, tenderness, curiosity, skepticism, often within the same volume, then this book will keep you engaged. And if you're looking to expand your exposure to contemporary poetry, especially from a poet whose work engages with questions of cultural heritage and identity, I think this is a very strong choice. Who is this not for? This book may not be for readers who want poetry to be immediately accessible in both meaning and tone. The author can be elusive. She invites interpretations rather than delivering a single clear takeaway. If you find ambiguity frustrating or prefer poetry collections that read like a cohesive narrative arc with one unifying theme, then this one may not exactly appeal to you. It's also not an ideal match for those who prefer light and playful verse or poetry that offers quick emotional gratification. The author's work often operates on a reflective, a sometimes challenging register, and the weight of her themes, the war, the mortality, the authenticity, and the limits of knowledge can make the reading experience more contemplative than casual. Finally, if you're looking for poetry that tells you exactly what to think or feel, this collection's resistance to any neat closure might not suit your taste either. An Authentic Life is a wide-ranging and layered collection, from the unsettling intimacy of the poem of force to the meditative domestic grief in An Essay on War, or from the lush stillness of hydrangeas to the probing skepticism of dialogues against God and dialogues against philosophy. Even when I didn't fully grasp a poem on the first read, I found value in the act of slowing down with it and letting the language work on me. At the very least, this is a collection worth exploring for the distinct perspectives it offers on history, on belief, on personal and inherited memory, all refracted through the author's thoughtful and precise voice. Of course, I'd love to know what you are thinking. Have you read An Authentic Life, or do you have a favorite contemporary poet? Please let me know in the comments. And while you're here, be sure to check out more of my videos and playlists. Whatever your reading tastes may be, you'll find something to match it. I read everything, hence the name of the channel, whether it is fantasy, whether it is the Pulitzer Prize as well, which includes poetry, fiction, nonfiction. I read and review all sorts of things that have come to me from suggestions or stuff that has just jumped out to me and appealed to me, and I'm sure you can find something in all of that. And if you like my videos, please share them. The more people who know about this channel, the more videos I can make. And don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those notifications, and until next time, keep those pages turning.